This Omar Artan says that he was subjected to an 11-hour immigration interview before being denied entry to the United States. He's the Somali match referee who now will not be taking part in the World Cup. He said he was holding the right papers and the right visa, but that didn't impress anybody at the border. Somali is a subject, of course, to the Trump administration flight ban. Other competing countries at the World Cup, which is set to kick off on Thursday, which are covered by this same law, which some say is prejudicial, include Haiti, Côte d'Ivoire, Senegal, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Iran. Well, let's pull this one apart because we need to get to really what is happening here and bring in for the analysis Alexander Cooley, who's Clerto Professor of Political Science at Barnard University. Thank you, sir, for being with us. Your thoughts for this gentleman from Somalia whose World Cup dream was about to happen. He'd been selected for what I think would be seen by anybody in sport as the pinnacle of your career, to represent your country on the world stage in that way, in such an august position of referee of any football match at the World Cup. It's a massive honour, and you need to be extremely good at what you do. The fact that it's being denied because of a law made up arbitrarily by a government, it doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, so here we're seeing the Trump administration's adherence to these hardline domestic immigration laws, guidelines, and procedures clash against the reality of what you need to stage a truly global event, a global event that includes match officials, team members, trainers, and fans. And so this isn't just a question of the referee. We've also had reports of teams being subjected to rigorous security protocols and screenings. It seems as if the World Cup is off to a rocky start.
One understands why security is needed, because if something goes wrong, it can be catastrophic. I'm thinking back to, say, the Olympics of 1972, when the Israeli team there was targeted. Anybody can go into the history books and read about what happened there. But the idea that something happens, you need to have security, that is an important thing. The extent of this and the fact that there will be people who will be basically banned from attending, it seems to go against everything that is peddled by the likes of FIFA and the authorities in sport over many generations now, under the glib phrase, the football family. It seems that this is very much a family, but they're very selective about who can be in that family.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think this points to a greater issue in terms of FIFA's relationship with the current U.S. administration. It appears that President Infantino has been cultivating President Donald Trump for a good few months now to try and ensure a relatively smooth World Cup. He awarded him a FIFA World Peace Prize, partly to, I would say, make up for the fact that Trump was not awarded a Nobel. He's tried at every stage, right, to ingratiate himself to make Trump feel sort of welcome and important and really the host of this event. And I think on the other side, he was hoping and expecting, as the steward of the game, that this would be a relatively normal World Cup, given all of the domestic politics polarization and immigration restrictions. And now it seems that that courting has not paid off. The U.S. has not really adjusted any of its policies in response to the necessities, again, of hosting this tournament in an inclusive fashion.
It would be fantastic, Alexander, to have Gianni Infantino in this conversation to put the question to him about how he feels now, because the FIFA Peace Prize, as you've pointed out, just looked like something artificially invented to make Trump feel happy. Clearly, it hasn't worked. Nothing has changed in the way that Infantino might have wanted. But then there's been the statement that he's made about, well, these are the laws of the land. We can't get involved in those kind of things. Complete in contradiction with what he said in 2017, where he said that everybody who qualifies will take part and all countries will be allowed to send their fans to attend. Infantino's position, it seems to be, well, somewhat under question. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, so I think Infantino has a history of calling out. Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex. We can hear you. We can hear you, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, Infantino has a history of calling out universal values. And then when he gets pushback from host countries, siding with the host country. Remember the sort of campaign that some European countries had pro-LGBTQ athletes in Qatar. Infantino then sided with Qatar and said this was a domestic matter that had to be adhered to by the laws of Qatar. That was in 2018. Similarly, here he is deferring to the U.S. and saying it's U.S. authorities who are responsible for immigration matters. But again, as the steward of a tournament that has to include equal access and a level playing field for all, this is deeply problematic.
Is the fact that FIFA's more interested in money than making the event that it purports to want to create? Basically, if a country has the cash to host the tournament, to invest in the infrastructure, to make it happen in that sense, FIFA's happy to turn a blind eye or even wash its hands at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's right. And we've seen the trend that several World Cup hosts are now authoritarian countries that appear to be using the World Cup to burnish their image. Some would say engage in sports washing, right, where they downplay political and human rights concerns in exchange for this investment in the world's spotlight. I think something slightly different is going on here with the US and the Trump administration. I think Trump also wants to signal that he doesn't have to change his domestic policies, right? That his guidelines and the law as he interprets it are what it is, and they're not going to make exemptions for an international sports tournament. So in some ways, this is very consistent, right, with Trump's other types of behavior, both domestically and certain foreign policy, that he's not going to defer to international norms and practices and the way things have been done in the past.
So clearly, the Somali referee is in this position, Omar Artan, where his dream of refereeing at the highest level, and he does have a great reputation. He's very respected, has been snatched away from him. There are, of course, many supporters of many teams who've qualified who can't afford to get there. So maybe we can take that out of the argument a little bit, because if you can't afford to go, you can't afford to go. Nonetheless, the likes of Senegal, the likes of Cote d'Ivoire, the likes of the Democratic Republic of Congo, well, I suppose they've got the Ebola issue as well, haven't they, as well? Iran, the war, there we go. They're not going to be allowed to sort of bring people in left, right and centre. There have been some screaming of the squad. But the likes of Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire, I was very shocked to think that some of the great players in those two teams, a couple of them play for my favourite club side in the English league, that they will be denied a certain way of like bringing all their family to watch them play, because they can afford to do that kind of thing. They're top earning footballers, you know, they get mega money, but they can't do that because of this incredibly, some would say, prejudicial stance of the Trump administration.
So I think there's two possible explanations, right? One is that this is quite deliberate and intentional on the part of the Trump administration, a kind of signaling to his base domestically that he's not going to be put off, even in the case of hosting the world's greatest and richest international sporting tournament. The second is that the administration didn't convey to the bureaucracy, right, and these various points of entry, right, the importance of treating these athletes and the delegation with respect and the protocol that they're accustomed to doing, right? And that would be a kind of more incompetence type of explanation. But either way, again, it points to, I think, a lack of sort of stewardship, and I think a type of hopeful thinking and wishful thinking that FIFA had about getting to this point and thinking that everything would just sort of fall into place.
So Infantino has questions to answer. Donald Trump has questions to answer, but he doesn't care. So in a sense, we're going in two directions here, aren't we? There's the ability to host such an event because of the investment that is required, and then the ability to host such an event because of what is required morally, professionally, sportingly, in order to keep things together and create that kind of football family atmosphere which FIFA often spouts but really rarely creates. My question to you, Alex, is should the United States be hosting such an event?
Clearly, I think it should be one of the criteria through which going forward decisions about bids they should be informed by these types of criteria. It's not just about money. It's being able to ensure the fairness of the competition and an inclusive environment. I think We are all concerned here about what is happening, and even more concerned in anticipation that the U.S., remember, is also going to host the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics, right? And if sports and domestic politics is mixing, right, so combustibly now, what is going to happen in 2 years' time when the U.S. hosts yet another premier global sporting event?
Alexander Cooley, Professor of Political Science at Barnard University. Thank you, sir, for joining us here in France 24 and sharing your thoughts and analysis with us. Greatly appreciated, sir. Thank you.